Hello, I'm Nicky Schiller. Welcome to the programme. World leaders and veterans are gathering in Normandy in France to mark the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings on the 6th of June 1944. On that day, more than 150,000 Allied troops launched an attack on German forces that would change the course of the Second World War. It was just before 6:30 in the morning when British, American, Canadian and French soldiers began to land on Sword, Juno, Gold, Omaha and Utah beaches, taking the enemy by surprise in what was the largest ever amphibious invasion, leading to the eventual liberation of France from Nazi occupation. Last night, a candlelit vigil was held at Bayeux War Cemetery. 4,600 headstones were illuminated in honour of the fallen troops. Today, there will be a series of events attended by world leaders, including France's President Macron, Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz, US President Joe Biden and Britain's King Charles. This is the scene live in Normandy, where reenactments of those marine landings are taking place. Back in 1944, over 6,000 vessels joined the attack. They were supported by over 11,000 planes. The Allied troops landed on beaches along an 80-kilometre stretch of the Normandy coastline. Today, it is the veterans who were there 80 years ago that will be the guests of honour. Around 200 of them, mostly from America, Britain and Canada, have travelled in person to mark the anniversary of a day which Britain's wartime leader, Sir Winston Churchill, called the most complicated and difficult operation of World War II. Throughout the day, we'll have live coverage of the key commemorations. But first, our correspondent Sophie Long looks back at the events which have taken place so far.
We stand in the future which you gave to us, the one you were told you may never reach, the one lost in the words of your last breath.
On the eve of the 80th anniversary of D-Day, a service to honour the heroes who never came home. They fought in the largest naval air and land operation the world has ever witnessed. More than 150,000 Allied soldiers landed on the shores of France. The numbers were phenomenal, as was their sacrifice. 4,144 of them lie here at the Bayeux War Cemetery, where those who enjoy the freedom they fought for, friends, family and royalty, came to remember them.
The epitaphs on the headstones here capture the grief of those who loved these men. One mother's words are, "He is not dead, whose memory lives in hearts that know and loved him." 80 years on, let their memory still live on in our hearts.
They had one collective aim, to liberate Nazi-occupied Europe. But they were individuals, sons, brothers, husbands and fathers.
I am Theo's daughter, Anthea. I was 9 years old in 1944. I always thought that when the war was over and we had peace, he would come back to us, but of course, he never did.
As over 4,000 headstones were individually lit up, honouring those that lost their lives here. So was the sky above Portsmouth, where their journey began exactly 80 years ago.
When we were passing the White Cliffs of Dover, the sergeant said as we passed, he said, "Take a good look, boys." He said, "Many of you will never see that again."
Of the 130 lads in my company, only 19 of us made it home. In those desperate battles, they gave their lives for the peace we enjoy today. I will never forget them. My families and their families and friends will never forget them. We will remember them.
Sophie Long reporting on that emotional service last night. Well, in the last hour, a vessel has landed on Gold Beach carrying a lone piper. Major Trevor Macy Lilly played Highland Laddies on the bagpipes to mark 80 years from the moment of the start of the Normandy landings. It was the same tune played by Lord Lovat's piper during those landings. American troops began landing on Utah and Omaha beaches at 6:30 local time. Well, let's speak to our correspondent Hugh Schofield, who is on one of the boats taking part in the reenactments of the marine landings. Hugh, just explain to us where exactly you are at the moment.
Right, I'm with 47 Commando out of Plymouth. We're on an LCU, a landing craft utility, and we're about half a mile off Arromanches and Asnières-sur-Mer, which were at the heart of Gold Beach 80 years ago, and where the forebears of 47 Commando went ashore exactly 80 years ago. And what we're going to do, what they're going to do, is not reenact, but follow in the footsteps of the men of those days. This landing craft is going to join up with 3 others, which are around us now at sea. We're going to move towards the shore, and in about an hour from now, the ramp over there will go down, and the men will go ashore in circumstances obviously very, very different from the ones which the men of 1944 went through. But the idea is to honour them by doing what they did, following their footsteps, and what they're then going to do is do what they did back then, 47 Commando, which is to march the 14 or so miles inland across Normandy countryside to the port of Port-en-Bessin, which back then they helped liberate, which was very important for the next phase of the Normandy landings.
How important is it for those modern day troops to be taking part in this event here?
If you ask any of them, they all say it is absolutely crucial. It's part of their law, L-O-R-E, their esprit de corps. They need to pass on the memory of what happened that day, which was the most momentous day in the unit's history, to the new generations of Marines who are signing on. And that's what's happening. We have older men, younger men and women, and what they're doing is carrying on to a tradition which the older people got from their elders, maybe 20, 30 years ago. They're passing on the memory of this moment, which was a moment of such supreme sacrifice that it is the culminating, most important time in the history of these modern day units. So that's what they're doing. Plus, of course, the wider task of educating the public to the importance of what happened on that day. And a lot has been said about the passing of from memory to history. That's what's happening now. Memory is disappearing. It's becoming history, and so the experience is different. And what has to be done is a task of learning and education, rather than simply evoking memories and emotions, which are obviously not the same as they were, say, 20, 30 years ago.
Hugh Schofield, live on that boat off the coast of Normandy. Thank you very much. And this is the live scene on those beaches where just so many people were involved 80 years ago in this operation that was that crucial moment in the Second World War. You can see there one of the vessels that has come ashore and is there today in Normandy. Now, a reminder that we are going to have all of the key moments throughout the day of the 80th commemoration of D-Day here on BBC News, but you can also watch videos from the memories of some of the veterans who were there in 1944. You can find that and our live page on the BBC News website or app.